Spirit warriors, lean in close, because what I'm about to say might just wake up something divine inside of you. Have you ever wondered why you've always felt different? Like you were built for something far greater? Yet somehow the world keeps overlooking you. That deep sense of being out of place isn't a curse, it's a clue. Throughout history, individuals with sacred assignments have always been hidden in plain sight. Think of Moses, once a stuttering exile, yet destined to part the Red Sea, or David, just a forgotten shepherd boy until God unveiled his kingship. There's a pattern to how God works. He conceals his warriors, his prophets, and his chosen vessels until the appointed time. That's why your silence wasn't weakness, it was training. That's why your isolation wasn't punishment, it was preparation. There was once a child raised in chaos, barely seen or celebrated. That child dreamed dreams too big for their environment, dreams heaven whispered into their soul. And even though the world didn't recognize their light, they carried it anyway. Spirit warrior, that child is you. Your pain didn't break you, it shaped you. You've developed spiritual intuition that others call weird. You've felt the burden of sensing things no one else can feel. You've walked into rooms and felt the energy shift. That's not paranoia. That's discernment. And it's not random. It's divine design. God hid you because divine gifts, when exposed too early, are vulnerable to sabotage. Your calling was too sacred to be paraded before it was protected. You weren't overlooked, you were covered. Hidden from the spotlight, not because you weren't worthy of it, but because heaven was forging you in silence. In Isaiah 49:2, the Bible says, "He made me into a polished arrow and concealed me in his quiver." That's exactly what's happened to you. Now the concealment is lifting, the world is shifting, the time for hiding is over. Your story, untold for so long, is ready to be spoken, sung, and lived. Chosen one, you are not average, you are not forgotten. You are divinely engineered with gifts that are meant to disrupt darkness, to lead souls, and to shift atmospheres. And everything you've endured wasn't in vain, it was your activation. So Spirit Warrior, listen closely, you're not late. You're right on divine schedule, and the world is about to meet the real you. Point 1, God hid you to protect your destiny before it was time. You weren't rejected, you were shielded. And that truth right there can change everything about how you view your past, your setbacks, and the people who overlooked you. See, in the eyes of man, it might have looked like you were passed over, ignored, dismissed. But in the eyes of God, you were being protected, hidden, preserved. Because what was forming inside of you, the gifts, the strength, the calling, was too precious to be exposed to premature battles. God doesn't just throw his warriors into the spotlight, he prepares them in the shadows. That's his divine strategy. And if you've been wondering why your time hasn't come, why you were left out, forgotten, or underestimated, it's not because you weren't enough, it's because you were meant for more. And more requires maturity, not performance. Think about David. When the prophet Samuel came to anoint the next king of Israel, Jesse lined up all his sons, except David. The boy was out in the fields tending sheep, completely unaware that a life-changing moment was unfolding back at the house. No invitation, no fanfare, no spotlight, just obscurity. But guess what? God didn't choose any of the polished, tall, impressive sons in the lineup. He chose the one in the shadows, the one who was hidden but not forgotten. David was never rejected. He was being prepared for something far greater, because sometimes your training ground doesn't look like a throne room, it looks like a pasture. Quiet, lonely, humble. But that's where you learn to fight lions and bears, so that when Goliath shows up, you don't flinch. You win. This is the divine pattern over and over again. Moses, hidden in a basket. Joseph, sold into slavery and thrown in a prison. Jesus himself, 30 years of silence before 3 years of impact. The world calls it rejection, but heaven calls it refinement. You weren't cast out. You were set apart. You weren't denied. You were delayed for development. There's a difference. The delay was a shield, a cocoon, a sacred space where your identity could grow strong enough to carry your destiny. So the next time you look back on that closed door, that ghosted conversation, that opportunity you didn't get, don't see it as rejection. See it as divine redirection. Because if you had been promoted before you were ready, you might have crumbled under the weight of it. If you had been exposed before your foundation was set, the critics would have crushed your spirit. But God, in his infinite wisdom, said, "Not yet." And that not yet wasn't punishment, it was protection. God often hides his most powerful vessels in plain sight, shielding them from premature battles, unnecessary noise, and destructive distractions. Because when he finally reveals you, there will be no question. You were born for this. And everyone who overlooked you, they'll have to watch as you slay the very giants they ran from. So walk boldly in your hidden season. It's not wasted time, it's sacred preparation. Tend your sheep, sharpen your slingshot, work your field in silence. Because when the trumpet sounds and your name is called, you won't need to fight for your place. It will already be yours. You weren't rejected, you were reserved, and when the time is right, the world won't be ready, but you will. Point 2, you've been disguised so the enemy wouldn't destroy you early. Let's keep it all the way real. If the enemy had any idea who you really were, if he knew the magnitude of your calling, the depth of your spirit, the power pulsing through your soul, he would have sounded every alarm in hell and sent darkness on a full-speed chase before you could even learn how to crawl. That's not just poetic talk. That's spiritual warfare strategy. You, chosen one, are not just another person walking this earth. You're a force, anointed and wired for impact. But heaven had to hide you for a reason. That delay you hated, that painful season of silence and being misunderstood, that was God placing you in stealth mode, a divine camouflage to protect what the enemy would have tried to assassinate early. See, spiritual history has a pattern. Every great leader, prophet, or chosen one spent time hidden before they were revealed. Moses was sent into the wilderness. David was tending sheep while everyone else was being considered for kingship. Even Jesus had 30 years of obscurity before stepping into public ministry. Why? Because timing is everything. If you show up too soon before your foundation is set, the weight of your calling will crush you. So that isolation you resented, that was preparation in disguise. That season where people left you, misunderstood you, or where doors slammed in your face, that was God shielding your glow until the appointed time. And let's talk about your voice. The words you speak carry weight. You don't just talk to impress, you speak to transform. Your voice breathes fire into dead places. People don't always tell you, but when you speak, something in them shifts. That's not ego, that's spiritual authority. And the enemy knows that once your confidence aligns with your calling, you become unstoppable. So of course he tried to break you in childhood. Of course he tried to plant rejection early. Of course he tried to get you addicted, discouraged, and insecure because he saw what was coming. But here's the twist. All of that pressure didn't destroy you. It refined you. All that isolation didn't weaken you. It made you dangerous. And now you're not coming out broken. You're coming out bold, quiet, but calculating, patient but powerful. The world won't even know what hit it. You move differently because you've been through different things. Spiritual experts and psychologists agree. When someone is deeply called, they often face unique adversity early in life. It's as if the resistance begins before they even understand what they're meant to do. Why? Because the enemy doesn't fight what isn't a threat. The enemy fears awakening. And your awakening, it's a ripple effect. When you step into who you really are, you don't just change your life, you change atmospheres, communities, and bloodlines. So the next time you feel like you've been overlooked, remind yourself you were hidden, not forgotten. The next time you feel like you're behind, remember you've been planted, not buried. And the next time you question your worth, take a second and realize this. If the enemy knew who you really were, he would have launched a full-blown attack on your potential before you even opened your eyes for the first time. But he didn't. Because God kept you sealed. You're not late, you're right on time. And now that stealth mode is ending and visibility is increasing. Get ready, because the same people who overlooked you are about to witness you rise. Not because you fought to be seen, but because your time to be revealed has come. And when you walk in that room, silent, confident, healed, the enemy will wish he had tried harder. But it's too late now. You've arrived. Point 3. Your pain was the cloak that trained your spirit. Chosen ones, let's get one thing straight. Your pain was never pointless. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every door that slammed shut in your face wasn't a punishment. It was preparation. It was camouflage. It was divine training in disguise. While the world saw rejection, God saw redirection. He let the enemy think you were broken, defeated, forgotten, but you were just hidden. Hidden so you could grow roots in silence. Hidden so your gifts wouldn't be stolen before they were strong enough to shake the system. You weren't buried, you were planted. Underneath every painful experience, something sacred was being forged, spiritual muscle. You didn't just survive trauma, you transmuted it. You became sharper, wiser, deeper. Your superpower is not just surviving what was meant to destroy you, it's coming out of it with your soul intact and your discernment sharpened to divine precision. You feel things other people miss. That's not a weakness, it's spiritual radar. You don't just walk into rooms, you read them. You don't just listen to words. You hear what's not being said. Why? Because betrayal taught you the language of lies, because heartbreak taught you how to recognize false love, because rejection taught you how to stand alone without shrinking. All of that suffering built your spiritual reflexes. You don't react, you discern, you don't chase, you attract. You don't fear the dark, you carry light into it. Empathy is your divine tool, not your burden. While others numb themselves to survive, you stayed open. That's rare, that's supernatural, and that's why the enemy fears you, because your heart hasn't turned cold. You've been through fire and came out gold. You didn't let bitterness harden you, you let it refine you. That's power, real power. Not loud, not flashy, but quiet, consistent, unshakable. You are the one that walks through storms and comes out healing others. The enemy didn't just try to break you, he tried to blind you, but all he did was sharpen your vision. You don't just see through people, you see into them. You recognize souls, you notice patterns. You sense intentions, and because of that, you're dangerous to darkness, to deception, to anything fake. That's why people feel exposed around you. They can't hide, not from someone who's already walked through hell and came back with heaven in their heart. And here's the twist. They called you too sensitive, too emotional, and too different. But that sensitivity is your signal. That difference is your calling. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to pierce through. You were never meant to follow the crowd. You were meant to lead the lost. And guess what? Every no was divine protection. Every betrayal removed what couldn't go with you. Every delay gave you time to gather wisdom. Because God wasn't building a victim, He was building a weapon, a healer, a truth teller, a soul with scars that speak louder than sermons. You were chosen for this path, not because it's easy, but because it's sacred, because it's needed. Because there are people who will only heal because you made it out and decided to shine anyway. You are empathy wrapped in armor. You are grace wrapped in grit. You are the calm in chaos and the truth in a world built on lies. And that's why the enemy tried so hard to crush you, because even he knows you are the weapon he fears most. So stand tall, Earth Angel, not in spite of your pain, but because of it. Because now you know who you are. Now you remember what you carry. And now you're ready, not just to survive, but to lead, to heal, and to awaken everyone still trapped in the darkness you've already conquered. Point 4, you walk with anointing, but speak with humility. Unlike the loud, flashy personalities that constantly chase the spotlight, your presence doesn't need to shout to be noticed. In fact, your quiet energy often says more in a glance than others do with 1,000 words. That's the divine difference of being a chosen one. You were never called to be the loudest voice in the room. You were called to be the one who moves the room without making a sound. While the world rewards showmanship and surface-level charisma, your power lies in something far deeper, subtle influence. It's not about applause, recognition, or approval. It's about purpose, precision, and presence. You walk in alignment with something bigger than ego, divine assignment. God designed you this way on purpose. That calm, grounded energy, that's not a flaw, it's your secret weapon. You weren't made to entertain crowds, you were made to shift atmospheres, to change lives, not trends. Your quiet strength comes from being deeply connected to your spirit, not from trying to impress others. Studies in psychology show that people who exude calm confidence, also known as low reactivity personalities, naturally command more trust and respect. And isn't that what true leadership is? Not manipulation, not attention, but impact, silent authority. The chosen ones often live behind the scenes for years. Maybe you felt overlooked or misunderstood, like your gifts are invisible. But in truth, you were being refined in the shadows. You were being trained to lead without relying on attention. Because real influence isn't built on applause, it's built on anointing. Your quiet nature allows you to observe what others miss, to hear what isn't said, and to move with wisdom while others rush ahead blindly. This is divine design, not human error. Think about Moses, think about Jesus, think about the prophets, the seers, the ones called to carry out God's plan. Rarely were they loud, rarely were they seeking the crowd. They moved with intention. They spoke when God said speak. They disappeared when it was time to withdraw. This is the pattern of a chosen one. Move in God's timing, not the world's tempo. You don't need to dance for approval. You don't need to force your light. It shines naturally, even when hidden under a cloak. Women, men, strangers, people will notice you and not even know why. That's the mystery of divine energy. You carry a vibration that awakens others simply by being in the room. You've probably had people say, there's something about you, but they can't quite put it into words. That's because your essence isn't man-made, it's heaven-sent. Your silence holds weight. Your stillness carries answers. You don't fill space. You anchor it. In a world obsessed with noise, your quiet strength is countercultural. While others are chasing clout, you're chasing clarity. While others are performing, you're transforming. You don't speak to be heard, you speak to be felt. And that's what makes you unforgettable. God didn't call you to be loud, He called you to be light. And sometimes the most powerful light is the one that gently reveals the truth, not the one that blinds with intensity. So if you've ever doubted your impact because you're not the life of the party, let this sink in. Your very existence is the shift. You walk into a space and people sense something different. That's not charisma. It's calling. You are chosen. And chosen doesn't need a megaphone. It needs obedience. It needs faith. It needs patience. So walk boldly in your quiet power. You weren't made to impress. You were made to ignite. Point 5. Your dreams have always been messages in disguise. Those dreams that don't make sense. You know the ones, the bizarre flashes of symbols, unfamiliar faces, distant places, or intense emotions that wake you up at 3:33 a.m. The ones you shrug off thinking, that was weird, and maybe jot down in your notes app or forget altogether before your feet hit the floor. They're not random. They're not just your subconscious playing charades. Those dreams are spiritual blueprints, and God has been sliding them under the door of your consciousness while you sleep. You're not just dreaming, Earth Angel. You're downloading. Let that sink in. You are receiving divine data straight from the source. Spiritual traditions across time, from ancient Egypt to indigenous cultures, from the Bible to mystic texts, have always placed profound value on dreams. In the book of Job it says, "For God may speak in one way or in another, yet man does not perceive it." In a dream, in a vision of the night. That's confirmation that the divine realm often chooses dreams to bypass the noise of our waking minds and speak directly to our souls. Because when you're asleep, your ego is silent, your defenses are down, your spirit is open, and that's when the downloads come. Some dreams carry warnings, some hold healing, others are previews of your next season. Prophetic, symbolic, deeply personal or collective. They're all part of your spiritual coding. They may not come with clear captions or subtitles, but their power is unmistakable. When your mind dreams in colors you've never seen and languages you don't speak, it's not fantasy, it's frequency. You're tapping into realms beyond this physical world. Your soul is in conversation with the Creator. Here's the deeper truth. Your dreams are training grounds, spirit classrooms, divine briefings. You're being given information about your purpose, your path, your power. But here's the challenge. Many people ignore these messages because they don't make logical sense. That's the trap. You're trying to decode divine intelligence using human logic, but spiritual wisdom speaks in symbols, metaphors, and energy. It's less like reading a textbook and more like reading the sky. The patterns you see, the repeated numbers, the recurring dreams, the strange animals or places, those are not glitches in your sleep. They're encrypted messages. And when you start paying attention, when you begin writing them down, reflecting and praying over them, you activate one of your greatest spiritual gifts, divine discernment. That's when things get powerful. Because now you're not just receiving messages, you're understanding them. You're aligning your waking life with your soul's mission. Think about this. Some of the world's greatest discoveries came from dreams. Einstein's theory of relativity, dream. The structure of the atom, dream. The melody to hit songs, the solutions to scientific puzzles, inventions, innovations, dreams have been delivering divine inspiration forever. So why wouldn't your dreams be doing the same? Your ability to dream isn't a passive escape, it's an active portal. You're not just imagining, you're interacting with the divine. This is your superpower. Not everyone gets this kind of access, and not everyone will understand. But you've been chosen to receive, to listen, to document, to act. So the next time you wake up from a wild dream, don't dismiss it. Sit with it. Ask God what it means. Write it down, even if it feels strange. Trust that if the creator of the universe is taking the time to whisper wisdom into your soul, then it's worth exploring. Because you, Earth Angel, are not just a dreamer, you're a receiver. And those late-night downloads, they're not just spiritual breadcrumbs, they're the blueprint to your destiny. Point 6. The world couldn't recognize you because heaven hadn't revealed you yet. Let them call you weird. Let them say you're too deep, too intense, too much for them to handle. Because, truth be told, they've never met someone like you before. And that's exactly the point. You weren't created to fit in with what's broken. You were designed to stand out and stand firm. Chosen ones don't belong to the system, they interrupt it. Your very existence disrupts patterns, exposes lies, and rattles cages. That's why they misunderstand you. That's why they talk behind your back. It's easier for people to label what they can't control than to admit they're intimidated by the truth walking around in your skin. You've probably felt it since you were young, like you were dropped off on the wrong planet. While others followed the script, you questioned it. While they sought comfort in conformity, you sought meaning. You felt things deeply, sensed energy others couldn't explain, and carried burdens that weren't even yours to begin with. You tried to tone it down, to shrink your soul just to make others comfortable. But deep down, you knew this world doesn't feel like home because you were born to rebuild it. And here's the divine twist. The same people who called you too much will one day be the ones searching for your voice when the noise around them becomes unbearable. The same ones who mocked your intensity will crave your insight when the lights go out and fake starts to fade. Why? Because when the system collapses, when shallow no longer works, when distractions run dry, when truth becomes a lifeline, it's you they'll turn to. Not because you begged for validation, not because you forced your wisdom on them, but because you stayed true when the world told you to fold. God hid your identity on purpose. He didn't want you to be prematurely exposed to people who would exploit your gifts or mislabel your calling. Like a seed buried in darkness, you've been growing in silence, developing roots, building inner strength. And just like a tree knows when to break through the soil, your moment will come. When it does, your presence will be the answer to prayers people haven't even whispered yet. That's how divinely timed your life is. Don't mistake isolation for punishment. It's preparation. While others were chasing spotlights, you were being shaped in shadows. You were being equipped with discernment, resilience, and anointing. Your trials weren't random, your tears weren't wasted. Every misunderstanding, every rejection, every lonely night was heaven chiseling your purpose into something unshakable. You weren't born to follow trends. You were born to lead transformations. So let them call you weird. Let them call you too much. Wear it like armor. Because the ones who call you too much are often the ones operating on low spiritual bandwidth. Your depth is not a flaw, it's your divine fingerprint. Your soul isn't meant for surface level anything. You crave truth, connection, purpose, and you carry it with you, whether people acknowledge it or not. And here's the part that'll really shake the room. When God finally unveils who you really are, when He removes the veil and reveals the reason for your silence, your storms, and your strength, people won't just be shocked. They'll remember every time they dismissed you, and still you'll show up with grace. Because you weren't sent here to gloat. You were sent to heal. You were hidden for a reason, but you were never forgotten. Chosen one, you are the answer they didn't even know they needed. Keep going. Your time is coming. And when it does, the world will realize that the one they thought was too much was simply ahead of their time. Point 7, the time of revelation is now. Step out of hiding. Spirit warrior, pause and breathe, because this isn't just another motivational message. This is a prophetic trumpet blast sent straight from the courts of heaven. It's more than inspiration. It's an alarm reverberating across both the natural and spiritual realms. Not an alarm of fear, but one of purpose. The earth groans under the weight of chaos, confusion, and compromise, and yet, right in the heart of this turbulence, you, yes, have been positioned. Not randomly, not coincidentally, divinely. You are a chosen one, a spirit warrior, a vessel of eternal truth wrapped in human form. And whether you've realized it yet or not, you are a threat to the kingdom of darkness. Your silence has been strategic. Your hiddenness has been holy. You weren't overlooked. You were being overhauled by heaven. History proves a pattern. Those who shake nations often come from obscurity. David was tending sheep when he was called to slay giants. Esther was hidden in a palace before she was summoned to save a people. Even Jesus spent 30 years in the quiet before his 3-year public ministry turned the world upside down. God uses the hidden season not to withhold, but to refine character, to deepen dependence, to separate you from the noise so he can tune you to his frequency. Your rejection wasn't random, it was redirection. Your pain wasn't pointless, it was preparation. Your delays weren't denials, they were divine detours to preserve your purpose. Every tear you cried watered the soil for the harvest that's coming. Every lonely night was an invitation to intimacy with God. Every setback was secretly a setup. Heaven is declaring it's time to reveal what's been growing in the dark. The world is overdosing on imitation and starving for authenticity. While many chase influence, you've been called to carry. Truth doesn't need a filter, it needs a vessel. That's why your silence was so loud. That's why the enemy attacked your confidence, your identity, your very voice. Because your voice carries deliverance. You're not here to blend in. You were never meant to conform. Jesus himself said, Matthew 5:13-14, salt preserves, light reveals, and both interrupt what is normal. That's your role. To interrupt complacency with conviction, to expose lies with light, to carry the weight of the Spirit in a world that glorifies the flesh. So now, Spirit Warrior, don't dim your flame to make the room feel safer. The same people who mock your faith today may one day depend on your prayers. Don't downplay your anointing, it's your assignment. You weren't created to be liked, you were created to be. This generation doesn't need another influencer, it needs an intercessor. Someone who hears from heaven and walks with divine fire. Someone who isn't afraid to speak truth in a world addicted to comfort. God's hiding of your identity wasn't rejection, it was. And now the wait is over. This is your release. Your voice matters, your scars matter, your story matters, because your obedience will unlock freedom in others. You're not just in the world. You've been into it. This isn't just your moment, it's your let the trumpet sound, Spirit Warrior. This is not just a poetic phrase, it echoes a spiritual awakening, a divine signal that something powerful is being set in motion. The Bible often uses the sound of a trumpet to signify major spiritual events, from the fall of Jericho's walls to the return of Christ. So when heaven declares your unveiling, it means a sacred transition is underway. Chosen one, your path was never about blending in. You've been hidden like a seed, buried deep beneath the surface, quiet, unseen, but far from forgotten. That silence wasn't neglect, it was preparation. And now the soil has cracked, the light has shifted, and the spiritual climate is ripe for your emergence. God is lifting the veil, exposing your name to divine alignments and orchestrating conversations about you in places your feet have yet to tread. You are not crazy, your dreams are valid. You are not broken, you're battle-tested. Heaven did not anoint you for survival. It chose you to lead, to disrupt, to bring light into dark places. You carry divine intelligence, wisdom not learned in books, but whispered in prayer and sealed through pain. The world may have overlooked you, but heaven never lost sight. This moment, this unveiling, marks your shift from hidden preparation to open manifestation. You no longer need permission to walk in your calling. The covering has lifted, the spiritual fog has cleared. The world is about to witness what heaven already confirmed, that you were so. Walk with the authority of one who has been chosen, crowned, and commissioned. This is not hype, this is prophecy, and prophecy always finds its fulfillment. Stay awake, Spirit Warrior. Stay sharp. You are the answer to prayers, the embodiment of purpose. Your time is not coming, it is here. Your unveiling has begun.